Welcome to the Simply Real Life podcast. I'm Sarah, the founder of Simply Real Health, here to help you simplify, amplify, and elevate your life. This show is for those of you who want the real talk on how to live a more intuitive and intentional life, a life that's healthy from the inside out, and one that feels more effortless, aligned, simple, and more alive. We cover it all, from health, wellness, mindset, motherhood, daily habits and rituals, to business and relationships, creativity and growth, and tiny tricks to feeling your best, and the energetics behind it all filled with personal stories, unfiltered conversations, and of course, answering all of your burning questions, all in the way of simplicity and keeping it real, so that you can create your own version of your healthiest life. Let's do it. Hi guys, welcome back to the show today, and happy fall. I cannot believe that it's already fall. How does that happen? This year felt like it went even faster than usual, and I am told by friends of mine that have kids slightly older, they're like, every summer feels a little bit faster. So I'm recording this because I feel like I don't have it all figured out. And even though I am somebody that really does put a lot of time and intention into thinking through the change in seasons, and I've done multiple episodes on this, like how I set summer intentions and winter intentions and spring intentions. And there's something about the fall in particular that you would think, after all the time and energy that I put into being very intentional about my life, especially seasonally, because I find that so much easier and so much more impactful than just doing it in the beginning of the year. Like January resolutions drive me nuts, if I'm being totally honest, because it's such a long span of time to be thinking through what you want your life to be, what you want it to look like, what you want it to feel like. And so I have found that there's such a helpful thing in sitting down at the beginning of each season. But fall is always the hardest season for me to make the transition, and I work on it every year. I do think it's getting better and getting easier, and I feel less sadness about summer because I'm really learning how to maximize it and really be so much more present and more intentional in my life. Like, this is something I am actively working on always. And I think having kids, and especially coming out of this year of having a new baby, there's something so magical about the way kids slow you down and really draw you into the present. And even though I'm always toying with all these to-do lists in my mind, like, oh, I should be doing this. I could get this done. I could do this. Something about my kids being home in the summer makes me want to be more present and see life through their eyes and just be together as a family and more about play. I just love that feeling so much. So I always resist when fall comes, because fall is typically much more about structure, routines, getting back into a rhythm, and maybe it's around school stuff or extracurricular activities. There's just a lot more that needs to be planned in order for it to flow well. So I'm recording this at a time when I'm fully in this moment. Right? I'm like trying to figure it out. And I thought it'd be a great time to record an episode of my process through it, because it is one of the seasons that I do tend to struggle with, like such a drastic change, it feels like, to go from summer into fall. But even this year, I feel better than I did last year at this point. It's just about small things that you're doing consistently, actively, staying aware of, feeling your way through, and whatever your process needs to be around it, let it be that. Like, we are all so different. And I feel like even for me in the last couple of years, I've worked a lot on not being so rigid and not being so all or nothing and not being such a perfectionist, and really getting into, okay, how do I want things to feel? And having that be the focus, whether I'm making any intentions or goals or how I want things to run for our family, like really leaning into like more of the feminine energy. Like, where can we gather and tend and nurture and be going with the flow a little more, but also having a little bit of structure so that that is possible. I think you really do need both. And for me, like, the New Year's resolutions is so opposite of what I want to feel in my life at this point. So here is some of the ways that, like, I have found to make this transition from summer to fall just feel a little bit softer, a little bit easier, and get our footing, getting our bearing in things. And the number one thing that helps me the most is just a reminder of like, you're not going to have it figured out right away in the first week or even the first 2 weeks. I like to give myself actually 2 weeks. And this is true with any change of season, but 2 weeks to test some things out, like to not be full committed on like, this is the routine. This is what we're going to do. I like to give myself 2 weeks of a little bit more margin, a little bit more space. Like, let's try some things. Let's play. Let's test this out. See if this works. See if this does streamline things. See if it does make it easier. I don't have the pressure on myself to have it all figured out in the first week of a new season. I think especially with fall, if you do have kids that are going to school, there's so many different things that it takes to get them relaunched and back in their grooves. I just like to give a little bit of extra space for everyone to feel their feels and everyone to adjust to new routines. And maybe that means a little bit more sleep and some different bedtimes or different routines. Like everything does start to change, especially with this season. And so sometimes it can feel a little bit unnerving. And I think that's true for adults. So in my mind, like with my own routines and things, and as I think about our routines as a family, and the routines for each of my kids, I try to give like a little bit of extra grace and space for everyone to adjust and not feel like it has to be dialed in right away. It has to be perfect. I think there's something very magical to be said, and especially probably to all of those of you who are maybe recovering perfectionists and typically in the past have really wanted things to be locked and loaded. I still have a lot of that in me, but I find so much of it creates this internal pressure that doesn't need to be there, just adds extra stress. The second thing I will say is particularly with fall, because there's so many changes in the schedule and changes in weather and the hours of daylight that we have, changes in different foods that are in season. There's almost like two parts of this season. It's like fall part 1 and then fall part 2. And part 1 is really late summer, early fall. Like the weather's still great. The hours of daylight are not drastically different just yet. There's so much food in season. Like it's really fun to start cooking this time of year. Part 1 has a different vibe than part 2, which is mid-October or November. Like we kind of start thinking about the holidays. And so I like to split it in two. Okay, so let's just think through, it's almost like the first 4 to 6 weeks and then the second 4 to 6 weeks have very different feels, energetically, weather-wise, hours in the day, everything. So even breaking this chunk of time that I'm thinking about into smaller pieces than even just the season. And I really only do this for fall. There's something about just the beginning of fall that really helps me wrap my mind around it. So the first thing I do, and you know this if you've listened to other episodes on how I set intentions, the first question is, how do I want this season to feel? Or how do I want part 1 of this season to feel? And I sit with myself for a second and see if there's any words that come up that are really present for me or really calling to me, or there's something enticing about, okay, how do I want this fall to feel? Is there a particular word? Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. This season is all about blank. Like I really want it to be all about blank. And you can, whatever, list a couple words if that really helps you. But just so that you have this sense of what is desire on your heart? What is a deep desire right now? Something you're wanting to call in, that you're wanting to focus on, something that you're really wanting to create, something you're wanting to cultivate a little bit more in your life or in your family or all the different buckets of your life. How do you want to feel is a great leading question into what are some of the words that you could think of that would really summarize, if this were to go the best possible way, here's how I would want it to go. Like if I was in control of how my daily life felt, what would that be? And seeing what comes up. It can be surprising sometimes what things come up. Like even for me, as I'm sitting through this, usually there's some sort of element of calm or peace or something. I'm like, no, the words for me right now are active, fun, social, about our friends, about our community. That kind of surprises me. But then thinking through it, I'm like, it makes sense. We just celebrated Rosie's first birthday. And so that's a huge milestone. I just celebrated a huge birthday. That's a huge milestone. And there's a part of me that's just like, yes, let's go for this. I want to be doing workouts more and more movement and walking, being really active and feeling so grateful that I can be and that my health feels great and that I feel healthy and I feel vibrant and I feel really alive. And so even the word active, I wanted my kids to be active, and we're doing some sports and we're trying out some different things and playing on different teams. And this fall, at least part one, is like all about being active and almost continuing some of that summer energy into the fall, because it has felt so good this summer to have a little bit more time and bandwidth to do that. And also this summer, I spent a lot of time teaching my kids how we move our bodies. That was like one of the things on their little to-do list every day. Did I move my body or play outside for 20 minutes? And so that has been the theme that I have loved, and I've loved sharing with them and teaching them in that way. So to me, those are some of the words that do surprise me when I sit down to think about it, about like what I personally am wanting to have this season be about. I think there's some really interesting things. Like there's some seasons in life where this is it. We just pick a word, and like that's as much as we can handle and as much as we have capacity for. And I have had many seasons like that where I'm just like, hey, what's one thing I want to be focusing on right now? It's one thing, whether it's a routine or it's a habit or one area of your life that you want to like bring a little bit more love to, bring a little bit more attention to, or a little bit more focus on, or practice at. Picking one area is great. And then you will also have seasons where you're like, I'm ready to go for this. Like, let's do and create a bunch of different things. Depending on your capacity, I think that's also amazing. I think at least twice a year, I will have that sense of, okay, I want to go through each bucket of my life, each of the main areas of my life, and pick a thing that I want to be focusing on in that area. And then sometimes I will think to myself, like, okay, things are really busy. They're chaotic. They're crazy, depending what's going on in our family or with work or schedules or how I'm feeling, just my capacity in general. Maybe I just pick 2 or 3 things that I'm wanting to focus on a little bit more. So I say that because this is meant to encourage you in your life. Start to think of, where am I at right now? What am I feeling? What am I wanting? What am I needing? Maybe think about that. What you need, maybe more than what you want. But what would be the most helpful for you? Because I do think there is this balance of thinking about intentions and thinking about wanting to grow and learn and always get better at things, that also be realistic of where exactly you're at. If you are in a stage of healing, or you're grieving, or you're going through some big major transitions in your life, maybe you're moving, or your kids are starting a new school, or something big is happening, giving yourself that space and margin of, maybe this is not the season to be digging in deeply to all of the different areas of your life and trying to make changes in all those areas. It's like, maybe you pick one thing, or maybe it's 2 or 3. And this is the part of not being such a perfectionist and not being so all or nothing, that you do this in some seasons. And maybe for you, that's been January, and then the rest of the seasons kind of fall off. What about bringing a little bit more steadiness to this, a little bit more consistency to showing up for yourself, and the process of reflecting in your life, of taking stock and inventory of like, what's going on and what do I need, and what areas would I like to be a little bit better, or what areas can I just totally let go of right now? So I think there's this overall sense of steadiness and peace and groundedness that comes when you're able to do something like this 3 or 4 times a year instead of just once a year. And that every season, giving yourself permission of, where am I at right now? What do I actually need? What's going to be helpful and motivating, but not feel like another thing that you're putting pressure on yourself about to achieve in all these different areas, if you know that that is not realistic right now. So me, like I love getting up a little bit before my kids so I can take a walk. And I've been listening to a walking meditation as I'm doing that. And even if it's for 10 minutes, it helps my mind in such a different way. It's like getting my mind right for the day, and my body moving and blood flowing, and just creating good energy, because I wake up sometimes in a funk, or I'm just thinking through all the things of the day that need to be done in the small pockets of time that I feel like I have to do them. And so I love that. But you know what? In this past year, having a baby, I have definitely prioritized sleep over getting up early. But now I'm in the phase of that actually feels good and doesn't feel like extra pressure on myself. And that feels doable, that I could get up 30 minutes before so that I at least have 10 or 15 minutes to take a walk. So just an example of your season of life, what's going on, not putting these crazy expectations on yourself, but also helping yourself with some elements of structure or some ways that you are living your life with more intention. I think especially around areas like our health that really do have this massive downstream effect into every other area of our life. You know what I mean? So I really do like to take a second to be like, all right, so is there anything about my food particularly, or the way that I'm eating, any way that I want to mix it up right now? It's a good time to reflect and check in. We're kind of moving from a season where it's hot outside and you're looking for more cooling foods or lighter foods, that where now we're going into a little bit warmer. Maybe it's soup season, doing more roasted veggies or one pot meals versus doing stuff out on the grill all the time. So thinking through that, and maybe you start to gather up a few recipes. This would be fun to try. Or when I get stuck in a rut, here's some things to get me excited and to make me feel encouraged and inspired again. I also like to think through, what's my body really needing physically, like whether that's your workout or that's your form of movement, or it's something else within your physical body. Like, what does your physical body need? How are you wanting to feel? And sometimes, again, that question, how do I want to feel this season, can really give you the answers to, what does that mean with food? What does that mean with my physical body? What does that mean for my nervous system? What way am I building into my life to have a time of replenishment and rest and rejuvenation of my nervous system, so that we're not in fight or flight all day long, like not putting out imaginary fires all day long, and that you're running on cortisol and you're going hard in your life without ever giving your body a sense to feel your feelings and emotions, instead of stuffing them down and numbing out, scrolling or shopping. There's so many ways that we do that. Just what things are you doing to actually tend and care for your nervous system, which impacts so much of your life, so much of your life. It's crazy. What things are you doing for your mindset? What are you doing for your mental health? Like, for me this season, that looks like continuing my walks and the walking meditations and doing that before my kids get up, or finding a 10-minute pocket of time that I can do that during the day. So maybe it looks totally different to you, but just even the fact of acknowledging that you need to be doing something for your mind. You need to be doing something for your body. You need to be doing something for your nervous system internally. How do you want this season to feel for you? Physically feel, emotionally feel, mentally feel. What are the things that you need to make that a success and have it be something where you're actually feeling really good more days than not? I also think it's a great question to think through, like, what am I wanting to do for fun or just for the joy of it? Maybe that's like a new hobby, or it's spending more time in the garden, or it's learning a new skill, or it's something just even as simple as, I want to get back in the kitchen. I want to be cooking a little bit more. I want to be taking adventures with my family on the weekend, or doing hikes or walks. It could look so many different ways. What are you going to be doing for fun, for joy? Like, how can you think that through now and be able to build that in or plan for it? So aside from that, like, these are all the things that I ask. And again, this is like a choose your own adventure. You know yourself best at this moment, at this time, of what you probably need to thrive, and how detailed do you want to get about this? How many different categories? Sometimes I go through and I think, okay, for my work life, how do I want that to feel? What do I want to be focusing on as a mom? What do I want to be focusing on, as a wife? Sometimes I will even take it to the next level for all of you overachievers of like, is there anything in my morning routine, my afternoon routine, my evening routine that I want to change up or try or test out? Like, going along with how you're wanting to feel in your life. Are there any things that would make it more fun, more exciting, different, or consistent at the things that really, really help? So just a little peek. Like, these are the things that I am currently journaling about and thinking through, and really make it a point to pause and ask myself, no matter how busy life feels, there is always something so anchoring about these reminders that we need. And we all need reminders. It's like, we could be the best at writing this down and being like, yeah, it's a great idea. I should be doing that. I should be doing that. That would really help. I would feel really good if I did that. So I find that this is such a helpful thing to write down. Write down somewhere where you can see it. I try to look at this every week, because every week my brain could forget something that I felt so passionate about writing down, at the beginning of the season. And I'm like, what was that again? And so picking a word, picking how you want to feel, picking what this season is about, picking the things that you're wanting to focus on, because there's so much distraction out there. There's so much noise. There's so many things vying for our attention that it really can get lost so easy in day-to-day life. but having a place that you can remind yourself, this is my priority right now. These are the things I'm focusing on right now. And how freeing does that feel to know that that can change? You could change that 3 weeks from now. You could change it again for part 2 of fall. You learn as you go. And I think it really helps you streamline and focus on the things that matter, let go of the things that don't. I think that there's something so beautiful about the simplicity of just reminding yourself, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to focus. And whenever you get distracted or feel off or feel like you're in a funk or you get lost or you're feeling overwhelmed, come back to these things and feel how it really feels in your heart, feel how it really feels in your body. And to me, that has been the most beautiful exercise, is that reminder to keep it simple. Like, the most impactful things are actually not hard. Most of them don't take a ton of time, but it's the change. It's how we're thinking about things. That's why mindset is so important, especially in having a healthy life and having an intentional life. It's how you're thinking about things. It's what you focus on. It's what you're feeding yourself. It's what you're feeding your thoughts. It's what you're feeding yourself in terms of media or the things you take in or the people that you're around or the things that you decide to say yes to. It's having this great filter that brings you back to simplicity and to the things that do feel really good and the ways that you do want to actively create your life versus feeling like it's just happening to you. And I think there's so much that we can control in our day, that we can set up for ourselves, that we can prioritize in certain ways, that we can make the room for. If we know that ahead of time, if we know that it's important to us, it becomes so much easier to want to commit to and want to do, especially when we've taken a little bit of time to get some clarity around it and to really think through, these are the things that are important to me right now. So we might as well give it a go and might as well see how life feels if we can create a life where more of those things are happening more consistently, not perfectly, but consistently, more days than not. So I hope that you do this for yourself in some capacity at any level, whether it's picking the one word or you're going through all your life categories. I hope that this is inspiring to just listen, that it's not always perfect and that it's very much a process. And the important thing, I think, is staying true to where you are, your capacity for growth right now. It doesn't have to be huge in order for it to make a difference in your life and in how you feel every day. And I think that's the most important part of all of this. So I hope this inspires you to be a little bit more intentional. There's such a difference that comes from living this way versus living the way most people do, just on autopilot, numbing out, doing everything just because they think they should or they have in the past, or it's because what everybody else does. But really, I think getting clear on what works for you, what feels good to you, what kind of life you want to have, the kinds of things you want it to be about and create more of in your life can have such a beautiful impact. Let me know if you have questions about these, or if you decide to do this. I would just love to know. Send me a message over at Simply Real Health on Instagram. It's so fun to think about all of you taking this and making your own version of it too. Here's to a fall that feels great, however you're defining that, to one that is being spent in all the ways that you want it to be. With that, I will see you back here next week.
If you enjoyed this episode and want more like it, make sure you're subscribed to the Simply Real Life podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and maybe share it with a friend or two. That would mean the world.